So, Josh, we're going to talk about Mono Blue Tide. What was your record on the weekend? I recall it being something insane.
Yeah, so overall final record for the entire weekend, I believe, was 20-3, with one loss being in one of my challenges, and then a loss in the Swiss of the showcase, and then a loss in the top 8 of the showcase in the end.
Yeah, you lost in a double up. That's how we ended up going up against each other.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's talk about the deck overall first, and then we can talk about some of the interactions that you kind of came across. And I think this will be interesting because you're relatively new to the format, so this is going to give people a really good idea of like bird's eye view how insanely powerful this deck is for someone to just be able to pick it up. And like if we're looking at the bottom here, $378 for what is, in my opinion, one of the best decks in the format. You're spending less than $400 to just go right to tier 1.
Yeah, it was a crazy experience. I'm a member of the Rochester Royals, and they sent me a text one of these days, and they were like, "Hey, you see, you have a Friday off for once. You should come try out pre-modern with us." And this was 2 weeks before Eternal Weekend, so I popped in. They had a battle chest of like 8 different decks of the format, and I picked this deck up. And they kind of looked at me a little goofy, like, "You want to try this as your first deck? Like, you want to give this a shot?" And I went, "Yeah, this looks like my type of Magic." I went 2-1 at that event and absolutely fell in love with the deck. On the topic of budget, I did not have a single one of these cards, but as a regular pauper player at my local game store, um, they had the Tides and the Kegs in the case, and I had enough credit to pick those up. So I
Sick.
picked
There you
up the
go.
Kegs and the
That's the
Tide
expensive
with
stuff
credit.
too.
Yeah. And then everything else my friends had and just kind of loaned to me. One of the actual card choices that was a little different was actually a card differentiation that was not by choice. I wanted to have 3 chills in my sideboard, but we could not find a third chill at the vendor, so I had to just throw in a second hibernation and call it good. And this accidental little sideboard change ended up being very huge in some of my matches. It was kind of crazy. But yeah, the only different change that I made from when I picked this up in the battle box was they originally had 14 islands main and no dust bowls main, only a dust
Oh
bowl on the
yeah, gotta
side.
have a dust bowl. Gotta have a dust bowl.
Yeah, I started
Yeah.
looking at it and I was like, well, like, how do I have a chance against like any sort of dust bowl deck or a fellow a Landstill deck? My biggest fear for the entire week, after I kind of learned the format a little bit, would be coming up against Blue-White Tide
Yeah.
and
Blue White
not
Tide,
having a
Landstill, both.
way.
Yeah. Finding the right high-end cards for legacy, vintage, pre-modern, or old school Magic can be challenging. That's where friends 3-for-1 trading come in.
3-for-1 Trading is one of Europe's top Magic the Gathering retailers with an incredible selection of premium singles, sealed product, and even full sets, all available with free, fast, and secure worldwide shipping.
They add fresh inventory every Wednesday with weekly deals and discounts. So whether you're hunting for that elusive piece of power, a legacy staple, or something spicy for your collection, they've got you covered.
First high-end orders over $500 or €500, use the code EDFREE to get free worldwide shipping.
Check them out now at the number 3, the number 4, the number 1.gg/ED. That link takes you right to the shop and helps support the channel.
Huge thanks to 3-for-1 Trading for supporting the Legacy community. Now back to the show.
I
Yeah,
will
it
say
does.
this: you do have a very solid way main deck to deal with Dust Bowl. It's Parallax Tide.
Oh, yes, yes. Yes. I sometimes forget.
Yeah,
Like I said,
this
a little
deck
bit
is
new.
yeah, this deck is super resilient against manland plans because of your Parallax Tide. The manlands are generally pretty mana hungry to begin with, so even if you happen to miss them and they get played later, you have that as an option. But you also have your quicksand to stop attack, like the mono what's called Mishra's Factory deck, like coming in with one. Especially if they're not
Yes.
familiar with the format, if they attack into your quicksand, you're like, yeah, I'll just get rid of that now because it's going to be a problem for you later. Because blocking with a Mishra's Factory is better than attacking with a Mishra's Factory.
get that
As I'm
pump.
sure you're well aware, I'm sure you blocked plenty over the weekend with Mishra's Factory. But let's talk about the deck card for card to start, and then we can talk a little bit about its interactions and stuff like that too. So
Yeah,
your
absolutely.
build's rocking 4 accumulated knowledge, pretty stock. 4 chain of vapor, which again is stock. 4 counter spells, again stock. 2 flash of insight. Now, this is always a choice. Is like, do you play 1? Do you play 2? 2 flash of insight. This card is bonkers. Talk to me a little bit about your experience with this card.
So Flash of Insight was a crazy card for me. I had some turns where, you're just flashing for 1, draw a card, set up for later. Always a little interesting sometimes, end of turn, flash on 2, just do a nice little cheap poor man sleight of hand at instant speed. Always felt good, but like some of these turns where that game went long, I remember I think the biggest flash I got off of just a hard cast was like a flash for 7.
Yeah.
And at one point in one of my games, we got through. It was a slew of a game, very long game. I had a flash of insight for about, I think it was a flashback flash of insight, where it was a good 20 or so cards, and I counted it out, and it was just pick up the deck and rearrange the deck in the order that you
at
want.
that point, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm gonna demonic tutor. Yeah.
It was crazy. Even more so than demonic tutor, it's tutor for a card, but then completely order your deck how you want for the rest of that game.
That is the big thing, is getting to reorder your deck.
Yeah, that was wild.
So, and not to mention the fact that it is actually card advantage. You're gonna like trade this, but then later on you're gonna trade it again. And sometimes people make the mistake of deciding that this is a thing that your deck does, and they'll bring in cards to stop you from casting Flash of Insight, and it's honestly, that's like kind of a best case scenario for you, because if they're worried about your graveyard, they're not worried about the rest of your deck, right?
Yeah, I had a moment where someone sided in against me, this version's format of the relic, the one exile, the bottom.
The Phyrexian Furnace.
Yeah, someone brought Phyrexian Furnace in against me, and I was watching this, and I was like, I really don't mind this. Like, you spent a card on this, and it felt like quite fine for me in the matchup. One of the things I really enjoyed about Flash of Insight is I didn't have any in the showcase, but I had a couple AK mirrors where I let them fire off the first couple of AKs, then I fired my AKs, and then before they could find more for some big AK plays, I used the Flash to get rid of my AKs.
Yeah. That's
pretty cool.
A solid play, especially in the AK mirror. So then going from there, we have 2 Force Spikes, which is generally, I play 3 Force Spike and 1 Flash of Insight, so that makes sense. There's the switch there. 4 Impulse, a 3-man Leak, 3 Stifle, then we have 1, where are we at here? 1 Nevinral's Disc. Talk to me about Nevinral's Disc. Or Nevinral's Disc, depends on who you are.
I just called it the disc. I didn't even try to attempt to learn how to pronounce that card. So, funny enough, when I played at my local pre-modern event for the first time, they gave me the OG printing of a disc. And on the OG printing of the disc, when I saw that card for the first time, I was like, this card is insane. This is a 5-mana board wipe. Because the OG disc does not say enters tapped.
Oh yeah, that OG. Let's load them up. All the way down here. We'll pull it together here so people can see what you're talking about here. All the way back to alpha here. Yeah, it's a mono artifact. That means it taps.
Yeah. That disc did not say enters tapped on it. So when I played a disc for the first time and tried to pop it in the same turn, that's when my friends looked at me and went, all right, you're going to play some pre-modern. We got to teach you the cards that are printed incorrectly. My first impulse, I went to shuffle. My first disc, I tried to pop on the first turn, and I played against someone at that pre-modern event who had OG Sylvan library that I attempted to stifle because it had the 0 and the activate.
That wasn't even the OG. That was the 5th edition.
Yeah. So I'm glad I got that weekly through, because that was a lot of learning right there. But The disc was
it doesn't say enters tapped. It says disc begins tapped, but may untap. It's like the third line. It's like 3 lines in. You're not going to read that far.
yeah, but disc was a powerful card. Disc being able to hit my enemies' enchantments.
Yeah,
it was a very big deal.
You have trouble with enchantments and sometimes creatures in this deck.
Yeah, the keg being able to kind of clear the creatures and artifacts. I definitely made a misplay in my one of my first challenge games where I put a keg to 2 and popped it to try to pop a survival.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Yeah, that didn't work. And that was a tough lesson to learn, but good to learn in the challenge instead of the showcase. Disc was a powerful card. One of the things that I didn't think about until I did it, and when I did it, it was absolutely amazing, is the key thing of activating your disc. The 1 tap it to activate puts the trigger on the stack to destroy all artifacts, creatures, and enchantments. The reason your disc dies there is because the disc is blowing itself up.
Yeah, it doesn't sacrifice.
Yes. Yeah. My play that I really loved doing was chain of vaporing my disc with that on the stack to wipe the board and then bring my disc back and then play my disc again and deploy that.
There's a really sick EDH deck, Marasil. Are you familiar with Marasil?
I'm not.
It's a Grixis commander. One in Grixis. And when you play it, you can exile a creature or artifact from your hand or graveyard. If you do, you put a counter on it too. So like even if it goes away, it still has those. Marasil gains the activated abilities of all things with that counter on it that are exiled. So you generally what happens is you get the disc first or second, and then you get Aetherling. And then you blow the disc and you blink Marasil out. And then when Marasil comes back into play, it gets to copy another thing. And you just keep doing that over and over again, and basically no one ever gets to have permanence out.
That's a nice little
very rude thing to do, but I had some rude friends back in the day.
As we are Blue Tide players. I had quite a few people. All the people who I found that were mono blue players were looking at me and they were like, well, "You understand we are the bad guys right now."
Yeah. We are the villains.
I am very much used to this. I am very much used to being the bad guy in the formats that I like to play.
Well, there's 3 decks that are mono blue that are like kind of well known in this format. You've got Stiflenot, of course, which can side into this plan. You've got mono blue Tide, and then you have occasionally you'll see Stasis pop out as a mono blue deck. Every one of those decks has a whole different
Stasis was my round 2 matchup in the showcase that I'm very excited to talk about.
Oh yeah, awesome. Well, tell me about it now, because we're not going to go through the entire showcase, but talk to me about the Stasis matchup.
So the Stasis matchup, I won game 1 quite easily, and then kept a hand that when I talked to my friends about, they thought was very questionable for game 2, but I actually really enjoyed it. So game 2, I was on the draw as I won game 1, and I kept a hand. It was 5 basic islands, a stifle, and a chain. I was thinking, I was like, okay, I could mulligan, try to find my annul or my spike if I wanted to try to like really fight over a turn 2 stasis. But I kind of thought to myself, well, they took a mulligan first, so they went down to 6, and I kept when they announced they kept that, or they take a mulligan down to 6, I really was like, I'm liking the idea of this 7, because my game plan was to just if they deploy that turn 2 stasis, I kind of let that turn 2 stasis stick, and then really just build up as many lands as I could, and never really tap out for any sort of like draw spell or anything like that. I was just going to play a very long game of draw go, and it worked out really well because they did exactly what I was expecting them to. I'm not sure if this is like the regular play for stasis, but they went for a turn 2 stasis right away, got it down, and I just continuously made my land drops. And they eventually ended up missing a couple of land drops.
Now, this was in game 1 against you?
This was in game 2 against me.
Game 2. I think as a Stasis player, a mistake on their end.
Yes.
Unless your turn 1 Vicing, turn 2 stasising, against a control deck, you never want to just like drop your stasis until they've tapped out.
Yeah. So I did a very much like get land advantage. They started missing some land drops and eventually had to like kind of go for something with the lands that they had set up. They had the land that is like the namesake land for stasis where you discard a card to
Forsaken
untap
City.
it.
Yep.
They had Forsaken and then 3 islands out. I took my turn, didn't do anything, passed, and with the Forsaken on the stack, the Forsaken like discard a land ability, I go to chain their stasis. They pick up their 3 islands to thwart my chain, which I let resolve, and then I proceed to stifle the effect of
You can't stifle it. You cannot stifle it.
Well, I then definitely won my game in a situation. I called the judge and asked if that was a triggered ability.
Let me double check again real fast, but I this is something that I've seen happen a few times. I might be incorrect. It might be that you can't react to it after the fact. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may remove a card from your hand. So if they've already removed the card from their hand, you cannot stifle it. It's already happened.
I did all of this with that
trigger on the stack. So then they didn't discard a card. That's the important thing. A lot of people try and do it after you've already discarded a card. It took me a second. It's been a minute since I played Stasis.
I stifled so they weren't allowed to do the discard.
Eternal Dirtles is proud to be sponsored by Moxfield. Moxfield is the best Magic the Gathering deck building website on the internet. You can create, share, and find decks from Commander to Legacy and even fan-supported formats like Pre-Modern and Old School. You can see all of our decks on our Moxfield. Follow the links below to stay tuned.
I grabbed the judge because I think one of the things I grabbed the judges the most was like, can I stifle this? Can I not stifle this? Yeah, triggered, activated versus mana abilities was one of the things I was really making sure I didn't like, because I think at my weekly, I eventually talked to my friend about it and learned that I did scam a player out of a game at a weekly, thankfully, because I stifled I thought I could stifle Petal, not realizing that's a mana.
Sadly,
you can't stifle that one.
Yeah, no.
So thankfully, nothing like that happened there. But yes, I did all of this very specifically. I began the fight over the stasis with the Forsaken on the stack.
So just to give you a weird history of Magic on how that works and why it works that way. It used to be that you could activate mana abilities as an interrupt, and that was faster than an instant. In a stasis situation, you could never react to it because it was faster than the instant. Then in Mirage, they started making mana abilities a thing called a mana source that was faster than an interrupt. So you couldn't even counter them with anything. Then they changed it to having a wording on most mana abilities that was countered blah blah, but mana abilities can't be countered. That became like a big thing. Now it's to the point where like just mana abilities just pretty much can't be countered. Even to the point where like I think they kind of screwed up when they wrote Pithing Needle. They were thinking that way, and they made it so that you can't do it with Pithing Needle. But the reason why is because technically, in the original rules of the game, mana abilities were faster than interrupts, so there was no way to actually counter them at that point. That's how it was supposed to work, and they've kind of kept that vibe going, but the rules have changed since then, so they had to like change how the rules work, but to keep that mechanic the way it is.
Cool, nice little history lesson right there.
Yeah. So let's talk about the lands. Of course, you said we've got a Dust Bowl, Fairy Conclaves as a 4 of, Mishra's Factory as a 4 of, 13 Islands, and 3 Quicksands. So talk to me about your mana base here.
Yeah. So very often I wanted to, when you're playing Force Spike, you're very much wanting to like those Force Spikes, you gotta, if you draw it early, it's great and you're getting that early value on the play against some of the green decks. Island pass, they go green Birds of Paradise, and it's like, all right, this is my mono blue version of Bolt the Bird, Spike the Bird, like keep that little advantage behind them. So a lot of the times I like being able to lead on island if I had the spike or the stifle for if they were a fetch deck, stifle that first fetch if they played incorrectly and cracked on end step or cracked on their turn and let me stifle before moving to my turn. So that was really nice to a lot of the times have that island on one. Sometimes, it's not a perfect draw and you got to lead on conclave. The quicksands were really, really, really great for most of my goblins matchups. I was quite
goblins. It's what it's there for.
Yeah, I was quite lucky to either have Island Stifle for a Goblin Lackey trigger if I did not have the Quicksand to keep it from attacking the first turn. So that was really great. So it's having that either Island on one or getting lucky and like real lucky and having the Quicksand on one against Goblins on the play or on the draw was great.
Occasionally, sometimes you have to rifle off a Chain of Vapor to put it back in their hand too.
I have actually I had a couple of games where I wasn't sure if it was 100% the right play, but they go bird turn one, I take my turn, I island chain that bird immediately just to really like keep that mana advantage behind, make them spend another turn, redeploy the bird, and only have one mana to work with on turn two.
Time Walk is a defensible card. Sure, certainly.
Yeah, I actually had an amazing play where I definitely think my opponent made a mistake in this sense of I was playing against goodness. It was like I think it was red green like Oath with the Terravore. It might not have been red green, but it was something similar to that where they went a green bird past me. I played island, and then they played a mountain, and I just chained the bird, and it actually got them to use a red blast. No, I think it was. I just remember that it was a matchup where it was very important that I wanted to land a chill on turn two. So I chained the bird, and they red blasted my chain to keep their bird.
Okay.
And then the next turn, I untapped, play a land, slammed the chill because they had used their red blast.
Nice.
So that was a really cool moment. But yeah, the land base kind of just clicked, made sense. 8 ways to win the game in the 75. 8 ways to win the game once you've not gotten a concede from your opponent because you took all their lands. But you got to be able to end a game, especially for a showcase where people aren't just going to be conceding.
Exactly.
So you got the conclaves, the factories. Those were great cards.
I think an important thing to discuss, because we're talking about this deck. Maybe someone hasn't seen the deck before. What does it do? What does this deck do?
Yeah, so
you're playing Parallax Tides and Manlands. What's even happening here?
We talked about it a little bit. We are the mono blue bad guys of the format, in my opinion. We are playing this combination of Parallax Tide, Stifle, and Chain of Vapor to really try to almost be a 4-mana, like, I don't know.
You're one-sided Armageddon, right?
Yeah, you got triple, quad. I forget what you get when you get to 5, but we're playing 5 Stone Rains. We're playing quintuple Exile Stone Rain.
Sure. Yep. So how's the interaction?
It's quite rude. Yeah. So the interaction you can do. You've got 2 different interactions, and it kind of depends on what you're really trying to do. If you are on 4 mana and you have a Stifle in hand, you can 4 mana play your Tide, remove 5 fading counters targeting 5 lands. Fading is a very interesting keyword. It's I had to call the judge multiple times to get full rundowns on fading. They fixed it later on, in my opinion, with vanishing a little bit, but fading is at the beginning of your upkeep, you remove a fading counter from the enchantment. If your turn starts and you are unable to remove a fading counter, you sacrifice the Parallax Tide. Yeah. So the very fun thing you can do on 4 is play your Tide, remove all 5 counters, and since it only checks for the no counters at the beginning of your turn, you then have your opponent has no lands. They can play, their 1 land, and then normally it passes back to you. And then Parallax Tide at your next turn will then sacrifice itself and put a trigger on the stack of when this leaves the battlefield, return all of the lands exiled with Parallax Tide back to the battlefield. That, notably, is a triggered ability that you may stifle. So it becomes a, 4 mana, take out 5 lands, they're gone forever, they try to come back, you stifle that, and it doesn't happen.
A 2 for 5, if you will.
Yes, a beautiful 2 for 5.
Yeah. So then how does it work with Chain of Vapor?
Yeah, so Chain of Vapor gets a little bit more complicated. You have to announce the fact that you are holding priority and not passing priority to your opponent. You play your Tide and remove a counter to target a land. You then respond to that, removing a fading counter to then target the next land, and you repeat this action to put 5 separate instances of target a land with Parallax Tide onto the stack. With all 5 of those onto the stack, you then respond again to cast Chain of Vapor to take your Parallax Tide and return it back to your hand. Once the Parallax Tide has then returned to your hand, the lands go to exile, and
well, wait,
there
you
is
missed
no
you
longer...
missed a step. You missed a step. Yeah. So
the
when it goes
Parallax
back to
Tide
your
leaves
hand,
the battlefield.
The lands come back, but there are no lands gone yet.
Yes, sorry. In my head, so you bring it back, it goes to bring all the lands back, but none of those instances of exiling the land under the Tide have resolved yet. Those are still on the stack. So the Tide comes back, lands return, there's nothing to return, then the stack resolves and those lands go to exile. And there's a very fun interaction with Chain of Vapor, which is the fact that Chain of Vapor has a little bit more words than just return a target permanent to its owner's hand. It has the secondary kind of words of the permanent's controller may sacrifice a land. If that player does, they can copy and choose a new target. You are Chain of Vaporing targeting your permanent. So then you are allowed to, if there's, say, something
say a Call of the
little
Herd
bit scary.
token is on the board.
My favorite that I did, let's say there's an Allurin on the field.
Okay.
So you get to then, if there's a problematic permanent that is not a land that you have dealt with from this Tide, you can then, give up one of your lands to then bounce that land back, or bounce that permanent back to their hand, or in your case, a Call of the Herd token, just kill that token. And you're really just giving up a land for an important permanent. But it's really great if, like, you're taking away their lands and then there's a threat still on the board that you want to get rid of that threat to then really just, like, clear the board and kind of perform a full reset of, like, you got nothing left and I'll give up one of my lands because I'm giving up 5 of your lands. I'm okay giving up one of my lands.
Yeah. I mean, that's the basic idea, is just is you're just 2 for 5ing lands by casting a total of 5 mana over the course of 1 or 2 turns to make it so that your opponent just doesn't get to play Magic, which is, classic Blue Mage play. You just decide, like, hey, that's it. You're going to be done playing the game, at least for a while. I played this deck several times on the weekend as well. I actually, in the first round of the event, I played against somebody who was on a Terravor deck, and I got to do it in game 1, got him. Game 2, he stabilized, got back into the game. Game 3, same thing. I got it off, and they stabilized and got back into the game. So it can be done. You can come back. It's rare, but it's one of those situations where, like, I was just digging for too long trying to figure out a way to end the game, and they suddenly Terravor hit the board, and it doesn't matter if you exile 5 lands if you've been they've been trading off lands or hitting, figuring out ways to get more cards in the graveyard. Casting Mox Diamond was a real pain because Mox Diamond was what they used to get back into the game. There are ways for them to get back into the game, for sure.
That's one of the real powerhouses of that powder keg. You can pop that on 0 to take out those diamonds.
Exactly, yeah. And the Call of the Herd tokens, for that matter.
Yeah. And then one of the cards we didn't talk about too much yet, Standstill.
Of course.
This is a messed up card. It is a very messed up card. But in my opinion, it's a messed up card, but it also is not the hardest skill check, but it's definitely a skill check in the sense of you must be able to analyze the board, and the possible future turns, and consider to yourself, without playing a spell, can I handle and survive and deal with what is going to happen for the rest of this game? You know, I've had times where I put down Standstill and I'm thinking, you know, oh, this is free. And then the next turn they drop down a treetop village and I don't have a keg or something out. I don't have my Dust Bowl yet. And it's like, uh-oh, I might have to break this Standstill and give my opponent 3 cards.
You got to search for a Mishra's Factory so you can block the treetop village.
Yeah, but you know, you get to the point where you've taken all your opponent's lands. You got Conclave Factory, a couple man lands out to be able to close the game. You can drop that Standstill, and then it's like, you know, not only do they have to find their land drops, they then have to give you 3 extra cards to deploy their first thing after they've found their land drops again. So it's a great card. Really, one of the funny moments I had is I was playing against a blue-red Dreadnought deck. I was playing a very interesting combination of cards, and I kept my hand on the basis of I was pretty expecting to, on the play, just drop turn 2 Standstill just to like really get a fresh 3. Then my opponent hit me with the turn 1 Curse Totem, and I kind of sat there for a second. I went, I can't play this Standstill because my opponent can just coin flip for the next 30 turns, and eventually I will die.
Curse Totem, as opposed Curse Totem?
Is that the? I might be naming the wrong card. Is that the? It's a 1-mana artifact, and then they name a card, and we pick a card at random from their hand. If we pick the card that they named, we take some damage.
Cursed Scroll. Cursed Scroll.
Thank you, Cursed Scroll. Yes. I got cursed.
Yeah, Cursed Scroll. Same set, actually, I think. Maybe, no, Cursed Totem was Mirage. That was Tempest. But yeah, that was, I often make that mistake, is Cursed Totem and Cursed Scroll. Yeah, I mean, it gets, the efficacy of Cursed Scroll gets less and less as a 1 in 7, right? As they have to sit under the Standstill. But it can, you can get there with it over the course of a few turns, especially if, 1, you're lucky, 2, if you're able to just keep playing lands and you get to a point where you have 4 of the same card in your hand, you're going to get to a point where you're discarding the cards you don't, the cards that are not duplicates, and you're getting a little bit better. So it can certainly happen.
Yeah, I didn't want to take the chance, so I kind of.
Yeah, I hear you.
I sat back, and I think at the point I didn't have any man lands to deploy to like really like just start beating them. So I was like, who knows? Maybe the worst variants catch up to me, and I never find a man land by the time they get to a point where they've gotten a couple coin flip wins with that curse deck.
Yeah. So this build with 13 and 3, you said?
Throughout the entire weekend, it was about I think 20 and 3.
20 and 3.
And then
20 and 3.
Yes, I played in
13 and 3 would have been fine, but 20 and 3 is ridiculous.
I played in every single pre-modern challenge, some games for fun, and then the showcase. I did not get to. One thing I really want to preference with that amazing record, a lot of those pre-modern challenges were 2-0 drop to then immediately join the next event. This was my first Eternal weekend, so I was trying to do some real tournament ticket grinding.
EV grinding, yeah, of course, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I did not play in any Legacy Vintage main events, anything like that. I was side event king the entire weekend.
Yeah. Side event end boss. We know it well.
Yeah. I got I think you might be able to see. I don't want to. Yeah, we got this big old Nexus of Fate back here.
Very cool.
I can give a little bit of a better.
I told you now. I have one too, but it's like not as good.
Oh yeah, there's that the dinosaur board wipe
avatar.
But yeah.
So I'll tell you what, we're gonna pause here. Go to we're gonna move the rest of this episode to Patreon, and we're gonna talk about the sideboard guide from there. We're gonna go over the sideboard, talk about matchups, and from there, if you want to check it out on Patreon, you can go to our Patreon at eternaldurdles.com/Patreon, and you're gonna see the whole sideboard guide, the sideboard plans. We've got 12 decks that we're gonna cover there. So, thank you for watching, everybody, and we'll catch you on the flip. Before you go, I need some help. Please subscribe to this channel and do your part to help sustain the Legacy content ecosystem. Just subscribing to this channel goes a long way to reminding YouTube that people love and support this format. Now, if you really want to go the extra mile, you should think about supporting us through Patreon. Both the links for subscription and Patreon are right here. And If you're listening on an audio format, you can go to patreon.com/eternaldurdles. Thanks so much for watching.